It is Dan Shanoff. He is
Yeah.
formerly of ESPN
I
and
got,
the
I got.
Sporting
Let's see
News.
what's going on here. Oh, that's better.
Now he does Quickish.com. Dan, tell us what Quickish is for those who don't know.
Sure. Uh, First, thanks for having me on. I love this show. I've watched all 4 episodes, and I'm thrilled to be part of number 5. Quickish is a real time news service focused in sports that cuts through all the clutter that's out there about the biggest topics and brings you the best analysis, and wraps it in a very short, quick, quickish, right? Wraps it in a short form package so that it's very easy to get through it and it's very easy to sort of keep up with what's going on and go get more if you want it. And so, Beckley, you'll have a really good analysis of the Heat during the playoffs, and we'll pull out some really great insight that you have, and then encourage all the readers to go through and read the whole thing and sort of wrap, and sort of keep up with all of the big topics that way. So it's been going great. It launched in January, and so far the response from fans and readers and the journalism community and media companies has all been really awesome, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed it. So you basically are in this cool position where you read pretty much everything that comes out from all these different sources. The reason that Quickish I think is cool is that it's not just ESPN or SB Nation or Yahoo or an independent blog. You kind of find the interesting things from all of those. So you've read, arguably, as much as anybody about the NBA and what the storylines were, and you track them this season. What was this season really about for you, and what were the most intriguing storylines that you kind of picked up on?
It's like so banal to say this, but I mean, LeBron. And part of that is because that's what everyone wanted to talk about, and that's what everyone wanted to kind of follow, and that to me, as somebody who's trying to serve, the sort of the people who care about what the biggest topics are, that was of interest to me. But just sort of on its own, it was fascinating and wearying, and it was everything, right? And the way it ended, that it ended, and the way it ended. Was probably the most compelling possible finish it could have had, at least in year one. And so, for better or worse, the Heat and LeBron eclipsed every other storyline in the NBA, probably by a factor of 5 to 10. And if you want to look at why there's a wonderful sort of thing among the avid NBA fans, and we are all kind of part of that group on Twitter of this incredible NBA sort of punditry ecosystem, and there's something that I think the avid fans have a wonderful point that this is a golden age of the NBA, but there's no question the engine of that golden age is casual interest that was created in the LeBron and Heat narrative.
Dan, outside of the Heat, there are so many other storylines that, as far as like Derrick Rose and the Lakers, are they going to three-peat, and then Dallas coming up from seemingly nowhere with the way they ended the season, but everyone just concentrates on the Heat. Do you think this is a bad thing for the image of the league? Whether they win or lose, it just seems like there's such a concentrated hatred and polarization, and even love to a certain extent, where people want them to succeed. Is that bad for the league to just have one central focus like that, or should it be more well-rounded?
That's a phenomenal question. I think that the history of sports, and I actually used to be very against this, but the history of sports has always been geared around dynasties, and there's a very, very powerful school of thought that is dynasties are incredibly good for sports, mostly because they allow the maximum number of fans accessibility into the sport. Whether you're talking about the 49ers in the 80s, or the Cowboys in the 90s, or the Lakers and the Celtics in the mid 80s, or the Bulls in the 90s. it is a net positive for the NBA in general. The avid fans are always going to be there. This is my argument that I make about the lockout. The league could shut down for an entire year, and the avid NBA fans will be first in line for the 2012-13 season. And so there's always going to be that interest from the avid fans in my team or the nuance or the breakthroughs of players or teams or who's a contender now or who's going to be a contender later. But I think it was incredibly important and good and healthy for the league that that the Heat be created and formed and become this thing, even if it threatened to consume the entire product.
Dan, I just want to know what your schedule is and how you get a beat on everything. I picture you as something of a Minority Report precog who just rises from the water and instantly knows what's going on the internet. I just want to get a sense of, when do you wake up, and is there any sport or any aspect of sports that you perhaps ignore to have a better focus on other stuff?
Yeah, no, there's no question. Well, first of all, let's start with this. I get up around 5 or 5:30, and that goes back to the days when I was writing my daily column for ESPN, because that's when I was getting up then to file for an 8 o'clock deadline, and so I'm spending the first couple hours of every morning taking care of my kids. And also, while I'm fending them off with like one arm, I'm looking around, figuring out what the big day after analysis is, because there's not a lot of news that breaks in the mornings, but there's all of the things that were said about the things that happened the night before that kind of come out, and you get a sense of the rhythm of the news cycle in sports, which is a little bit different than politics or a little bit different than entertainment, and certainly tech, and so from there it's just figuring out what are the biggest topics, and that's where you'll see the short shrift, right? I'm very focused on the biggest 5 or 6 biggest things in any given day, and so some of the smaller, more interesting things in, say, a baseball season might fall through the cracks. It's very hard to take a macro 10,000-foot view of anything, but that's where there's a component of Quickish that is around recommending just awesome content, awesome columns, awesome analysis. And maybe that's Joe Posnanski writing about something that has nothing to do with anything in the news cycle. It's just really well done. This is where Grantland has been a huge boon, right? Incredible quality content, incredible quality writing that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the news cycle. That's just interesting, and you see that everywhere. It's not exclusive to Grantland. It's just I think that part of that is picking out. Part of the job is tracking the news cycles, and part of the job is finding just awesome stuff that's out there and making sure that it's accessible to people.